one family and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online.
Vice President Biden, as he arrived in Beijing,
growth of China is overwhelmingly in our interest.
Right by his side, his son Hunter. Less than 2 weeks later, Hunter's firm had new business, creating an investment fund in China.
China is overwhelmingly in our interest.
Biden's son took a $1 billion loan from the Chinese government. Does anyone in their right mind think that Hunter's company received such a massive windfall on his own merits?
Overwhelmingly in our interest.
And now we're opening, and we're opening with a bang.
And today's announcement proves that our economy is roaring back. It's coming back extremely strong. The United States economy added almost 5 million jobs. Likewise, Hispanic employment is up by 1.5 million jobs. 3 million more women were employed in the month of June.
This is better than a V. This is a rocket ship.
Joe Biden has a massive China problem. Because of his wrong-headed policies, and perhaps because of his personal and familial corruption, his China problem became a national China problem for our country, one that's led to disastrous consequences for the financial and physical health of millions of Americans. I'm Steve Cortez, senior advisor to the Trump campaign, and this is MAGAnomics. Later in the show, we're going to have some terrific guests, including Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. But first, before we delve into the incredibly serious and damning news that we've learned about the Biden crime family and its complicity with enemy nations, let's consider what China has done to this country over the last 2 decades, especially in the economic realm. From China's inclusion into the World Trade Organization in 2001 until Donald Trump's election, America lost a staggering 3.2 million manufacturing jobs to China. 60,000 American factories closed due to the terrible trade deals that both Republicans and Democrats entered into with the Chinese Communist Party. Those American workers did not lose out in a fair game. They were not outworked by a superior labor force from China. No, they were victimized by trade practices that were unfair, not remotely reciprocal, and in many cases, outright criminal. China engaged in highly predatory industrial practices. They dumped products like steel into our country at below production cost just to knock out U.S. manufacturers and capture market share. Because every substantial enterprise in China is totally controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, either directly or implicitly. Consequently, these aren't organizations that are truly private. They're not real companies at all, but they're rather agents of the Beijing Politburo, intent first on domination of America and on profits only secondarily. In addition, China engaged in wholesale plunder of American technology and designs, stealing our intellectual property through a consistent and systemic operation of industrial espionage. China also never opened their markets to American goods and services with even a fraction of the openness that we granted to them. As a result, consider the manufacturing jobs lost to China in some of these key battleground states before Donald Trump righted this listing ship. In Minnesota, 88,000 jobs were lost to China. Wisconsin, 78,000. Pennsylvania, 136,000 jobs lost to China. North Carolina, 130,000 jobs. Arizona, 63,000. Thank goodness American workers rose up in 2016 and decided to end this American carnage. We hired a political outsider, a businessman, to be our national CEO, and the results have been amazing. Unlike the slow growth Obama years that came before him, he restored America's manufacturing might. In fact, over the 8 years that Biden was in the White House, America lost a staggering 200,000 manufacturing jobs. But during Donald Trump's first 3 years, our nation gained an amazing 500,000 manufacturing jobs before the China virus hit our country like an epidemiological Pearl Harbor. And now we're doing it again. The Trump boom 2.0. But electing Biden would represent a retreat, a move backwards to those miserable days for American workers, to a place of economic globalism and economic submission to China. Why? You might ask, why has Joe Biden been so soft on China for so long? He's literally been coddling and appeasing the tyrants of Beijing for decades. Well, we might have just learned about some of the totally corrupt motivation for Biden's constant supplication to the CCP. According to bombshell emails uncovered by the New York Post, Joe Biden's family was making deals for millions of dollars in payments from a shadowy Chinese energy company CEO with deep ties to China's military and intelligence services. According to Hunter Biden's emails, verified by Fox News sources with firsthand knowledge of these arrangements, Joe Biden himself shared in these dirty proceeds. Money flowing directly from the most dangerous adversary in the world, China, directly to the Biden family and perhaps to the then sitting vice president himself. In addition, outside of China, the Biden family also cashed in on hugely lucrative deals with shady oligarchs in both Ukraine and Russia. And Joe Biden had full awareness of the schemes because he was briefed on these risks by our very own State Department. So it seems reasonable to suspect that at least part of the reason that Biden, the globalist, was willing to enable the CCP's devastating abuse of American workers was simple, old-fashioned personal greed, enabled by a corrupt family. In fact, we can rightly call the Bidens a crime family. They got rich from China, while Americans got robbed blind. The CCP sent millions of dollars to the Bidens. Joe Biden sent millions of American jobs to China. And what did Beijing send us back? The virus. But even the China virus cannot keep America down for long. The economic news lately, Patriots, well, it's astounding, quite frankly. I worked on Wall Street trading desks for 25 years, folks, and I never, ever saw a string of economic numbers like we have seen lately in America. We all still recognize that we have work to do to fully recover from the fallout of the CCP virus, to reclaim the heights of the Trump boom that we enjoyed into the early months of this year. Nonetheless, the recent momentum is astonishing, and it augurs for a simply amazing 2021 year of economic recovery and economic acceleration if we reelect our entrepreneur-in-chief president. Let's have a quick look at some of the data. Just last Friday, we got fantastic news on retail sales. For the month of September, overall retail sales rose 1.9%, more than doubling Wall Street expectations. Before I dig into that data, a quick word on expectations. Consider that Wall Street, from banks to hedge funds, they employ veritable armies of economists and mathematicians to create the predictions and expectation calculations for key economic data, like retail sales. These people are wicked smart, and they're generally very highly paid for their really important job. In general, historically, they're pretty good at gauging new data expectations. But lately, it seems almost all of the experts keep getting it wrong and to the upside, meaning they're not nearly optimistic enough about our recovery. Now, I'm not blaming them or trying to shame them in some way, but merely pointing out that this great American comeback, this economic renaissance that unfolds across our great country, it's absolutely better than almost anyone expected. And it's defying the skeptics. Getting back to that retail sales number, the big surge that was reported on Friday, it now places total store sales far, far above the pre-pandemic levels. So we not only recovered the losses of the virus and the lockdowns, but now we surged to big new highs. In fact, this September number for total retailer receipts is a staggering 27% higher than the total dollar figure for April in just 5 months. That's incredible. Auto sales continue to soar. They were up 3.6% last month. I've talked a lot on this show about the surge in housing, with sales of existing homes setting all-time records and sales of new homes setting a 14-year record. Well, apparently a lot of Americans want not only the new house, but the new wheels as well. It's a terrific sign of confidence, and it's driving a vault higher in wages in those categories, as wages for construction workers and for auto workers just hit all-time highs in September. And the growth rate in those two wage categories, like all blue-collar sectors, it vastly exceeds the wage growth of the last 4 years of Obama-Biden. The Biden White House years were salad days for the already successful, the owners of assets, but workers suffered as wages stagnated. Now we have a president creating an economy that rewards labor and capital. Pay ratchets higher, millions of jobs come back to the economy, and the stock market keeps setting record highs. We also got terrific news just a few days ago about small business. The National Federation of Independent Business is the largest organization representing the owners of small businesses across our land. They publish very detailed surveys of their members, the strivers and the dreamers who create value, employ their fellow citizens, and form the backbones of strong communities. The most recent NFIB survey shows an astonishing return of optimism among entrepreneurs. It reached 104 points for September, matching the highs of the year from January, before any of the China virus fallout hit our economy. In just months, small businesses are getting back on their feet, back to work, and reporting the same fantastic level of high energy and real optimism that they reported before the virus. That's incredible. In fact, consider this NFIB number in context. Even as we still face pandemic challenges, especially in lockdown states like Illinois and California, where tyrant governors make life hard for small businesses, even despite those challenges, the Small Business Optimism Index right here exceeds the highest reading seen for all 8 years of Biden in the White House as vice president. That's amazing. But we're not done. Not even close. In fact, we're just getting started. We refuse to go backwards, back to lockdowns that Joe Biden threatens, and we will certainly not go back to economic submission to China. We've known for years how awful Joe Biden was on policy regarding China. Now we know how compromised he is personally as well. He's totally unfit to be our commander-in-chief. In fact, given what we know, forgetting for a second about how much we don't know about the Biden crime family, consider, please, that Joe Biden would certainly not be able to get a security clearance right now for a sensitive federal job. Speaking of jobs, we're going to rehire President Donald J. Trump, a man with a proven track record of creating jobs and high-paying ones, too. Upward and onward, patriots. American prosperity and American sovereignty beckon in the second Trump term. Up next, Congressman Jim Jordan.
We want to see China rise, to continue to rise in a responsible way.
After Joe Biden takes a pretty soft position towards the Chinese, Hunter Biden inks what becomes a $1.5 billion with a B dollar deal.
His son Hunter there and in China profiting off his debt. There's no question that he did it. You wouldn't have signed him onto a major energy company in Ukraine unless his last name was Biden.
Hunter Biden was reportedly kicked out of the Navy Reserve after he failed a drug test.
He spent extravagantly on drugs, alcohol, prostitutes, strip clubs.
There are 5 Biden family members who cashed in while he was vice president.
The Chinese have a long-standing practice of extending deals to family members in exchange for favorable treatment from foreign leaders. Biden recognized this.
Growth in China is overwhelmingly in our interest.
China would prefer Joe Biden. That's their conclusion, that they would prefer Joe Biden.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Darling, somebody just moved next door. Who is it? It's a representative of Antifa. She will look at her husband and say, darling, we're out of here. Remember, they were trying to blame other people. They don't like to mention the name Antifa. I said it's Antifa, and I was right. I was right. They're bad people. And you know what? They have to pay a price for the damage and for the horror that they've caused. They have to pay a price. A lot of them now are wealthy. You know, they're like these wealthy, spoiled kids that have no clue about life. They've got arms that are about this big, but they wear heavy jackets. And you look, you say, oh, that guy looks tough. And then the jacket comes off, and you see these two little. Then they go home, and they live in a basement, too, their mom and dad's basement.
I looked deep into it and I did the math. Why did Obama send money to that Wuhan lab? What is George Soros doing with all of his cash?
Joe Biden, when he was on the Breakfast Club.
Whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Oh, hold on now. Oh, y'all really do think y'all own our vote?
Gun throwing patriot, God being patriot. Pricing why they mad, cause I'm really Navy faking it.
Trump 2020 landslide. I haven't seen not one Joe Biden sticker yet.
Welcome back. I'm Steve Cortez, and my first guest tonight is Congressman Jim Jordan. Representative, thanks so much for taking time out of a busy campaign season to join us tonight. Now, I want to ask you about Ohio workers in the industrial heartland. They suffered disproportionately from terrible trade deals like NAFTA and China receiving status as a most favored nation trading partner of the United States. You know, we know they never were a trade partner, they were a trade exploiter. So how has the America First economic approach to trade benefited workers in your district and in your state?
Well, Steve, good to be with you. A couple things. First, our district, 435 congressional districts in the country. Ours is one of the top manufacturing districts. I think we're the top 25 manufacturing output. So we're one of the biggest manufacturing districts in the nation. The president's policies have been a huge benefit to manufacturing across our district. And a specific example is Whirlpool. What the president has done, taking actions on trade, have directly impacted Whirlpool. That's why the president was here at Whirlpool in Clyde, Ohio, back this summer. I mean, they're adding jobs. They've kept jobs. They're adding jobs. They're hiring more people. It's been a huge plus. And I think folks across Ohio and frankly across the country appreciate the fact that this president, for the first time, has first president to do so, has stood up to China and said, we're going to do the right thing by the American worker, by the American family. And you can see it across our district, and it's great to see. I feel really good about where the president is and what's going to happen on November 3rd here in Ohio.
Right. You know, regarding that negotiating posture, whether we're negotiating with China or even with our friendly allies, you know, I'm of the view that America should always recognize that we bargain from a position of strength, because every other country and every company on earth badly wants access to this massive domestic market of the United States. So your thoughts on that, on President Trump's approach? You know, I often use the analogy that in the game of sort of global trade negotiating poker, the United States acted for too long like we had a pair of eights when we had a straight flush. So your thoughts about our negotiating position?
No, the president understands we're the big kid on the block, and that means you do have negotiating power. And instead of us always giving into the other side, let's stand up for American interests. Let's stand up for manufacturing interests. Let's stand up for agriculture. Let's stand up for the American family. And in the end, you know, I remember during the debate a couple of weeks ago between Vice President Pence and Senator Harris. And there was a point in that debate where Senator Harris said, you know, you can't trust the president, but this baloney. And I thought, are you kidding me? This guy, more than any president in our lifetimes, has done what he said he would do. And you can just run down the list. He said he would cut taxes. He did. He said he'd reduce regulation. He did. He said he'd have a winning, growing economy. We had the best economy in history, and it's now coming back.
Right. No, listen, I really, believe that he's President Promise Keeper. You know, I don't think it's an exaggeration to call him that, because unlike any politician I've ever seen, it's promises made during their campaign and then promises kept and fulfilled actually in office. You know, you mentioned debates. You were talking about the vice presidential debate. Last time you and I were together was, of course, in your home state at Cleveland for the presidential debate. And I found out, maybe this is breaking news to our audience, if memory serves me correctly, I found out that you do actually have suit coats, because I think you wore one for the debate, didn't you?
I try to wear one whenever I'm around the president. I put on a jacket, and then obviously you have to on the House floor. It's one of the rules. But other than that, when you're taking on some of these folks in a committee hearing, you think weren't square with the American people, weren't square with the people I get the privilege of representing. You got to sort of take off your coat and get after them. So
understood.
I do have one.
Understood. Hey, so, regarding the economy, I do think it's important to talk about what's going on right now, but also to take a quick look backward, because we now have the final data for 2019, and that was the last pre-China virus year. And the evidence strongly suggests that it was the best year in American history for workers. And to put a number on that, 6.8% wage growth, overall, and even better for the economic underdogs, especially blue-collar labor, minorities. So it seems that, you mentioned among those promises, the tax cut. It seems that the 2017 tax cuts really did pay off for workers and for incomes in this country. Your thoughts, Jim?
No, it paid off for everyone. Paid off for a growing economy. But you're right. We had the lowest unemployment in 50 years, lowest unemployment across any demographic in our population. Wages were increasing, which obviously helps middle class, working class families. Wages were going up. The market was going up. Everything was so positive. And then, as the president rightly points out, we get hit with this terrible virus. But here's the amazing thing, Steve. It's coming back in a V. It's coming back strong. The Great American Comeback is, in fact, underway. But imagine how much better the Great American Comeback would be if some of our biggest states, most populous states, weren't still largely locked down. I mean, you think about it. You got New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Illinois, California. Those are 6 of the top, I think, 12 states in population. 6 of the biggest states in our country still largely locked down. And yet, in spite of all that, we're having this amazing economic recovery, getting us back to where we were just a few months ago. So, yeah, this president knows how to win, as he said in 16. We could be doing more of that if some of these governors were not keeping their states so locked down.
Right. No, I totally agreed. And that's why I believe if we reelect President Trump, 2021 may make history economically for this country, because if those states get reasonable again and smartly and aggressively get back to normalcy economically, and they finally become part of the American Renaissance that's charging ahead right now without them, and all the data show us that. I talked in my opening monologue about the amazing retail sales numbers we just got on Friday. This economy is roaring back to life. But you're so right. Right now, it's the liberty states that are carrying the ball. If we can actually get these blue states to join in, there's going to be a whole lot more winning ahead for the American people and the American economy. And, so speaking of winning, I want to ask you, Congressman, about your background, if you're willing to share some with the audience, because your background is in sports. Sure. You had a really successful career in wrestling, both as a coach and as an athlete on the mats. So what convinced you to switch gears and to pursue this second career of public service?
Well, I mean, I was at a point where you're either going to try to be a head coach in the Big Ten or you're going to do something else. And I was looking for something to kind of compete at. I got to be honest. So there's the competition factor that is part of the political game. And when you get married, you have kids, you look at the world different. You get tired of government taking your money and telling you what to do. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna look to run. And I always tell people when I first decided to run then for state representative, now 26 years ago, 1994, no one gave me a chance. We were, I remember talking with some of the political leaders, and they said, well, you're a nice young guy, because I was young back then. They said, you're a nice young guy, but this 2-term county commissioner is going to win. And we said, well, we'll see. I always tell people that there's a reason they play the game one Friday night. There's always a team favorite, but the team favorite doesn't always win. And so we had a lot of good people help us out, and we've been involved in it every since. But look, I like fighting for the things I think families care about, the things that I think make our country special. And to be honest, no one has done that more than the president, fighting for the things that make this country the greatest nation ever. And I would argue, Steve, and you know this, what's really at stake this election is, can America stay America? Can the values, principles, institutions that make us special, can we keep those intact? Can we make sure they stay there? Because if the left were to win, I don't think they're going to. I think the president's going to win. But if they were, the things they would do to the structure, the things they would do to your fundamental liberty are really, 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 really a concern. And so that's what's at stake. And that's the reason I got into this business a few years back.
Yeah, I agree. We're fighting for our republic right now. The kinds of things that they're talking about, their agenda, for example, effectively vaporizing the United States border. Kamala Harris is on the record saying she wants to decriminalize the act of trespassing into America. Joe Biden says he wants to offer taxpayer-funded health care to illegals and eventually full amnesty and the right to vote. That would fundamentally and permanently change our country. So I don't think you're exaggerating when you say that our republic is really at stake. But continuing on the sports. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and in the end, it's about freedom. Never forget, over the last several months, particularly in some of these Democrat-run states and Democrat-run cities, they've told all kinds of Americans, you can't go to church, can't go to work, can't go to school, can't go to a loved one's funeral, but it is just fine to protest, riot, and loot. That is crazy. And so when I talk about freedom, I really mean it. The Attorney General put out a memo at the start of this coronavirus back in April, where he said, a memo to all U.S. attorneys. He said, we should all remember this, that the Constitution is not suspended during a crisis. And we have to keep that in mind. Your rights aren't suspended during a crisis. In fact, that's when they're most important. The president understands that. And we need to keep that in mind as well.
That's right. So, Congressman, sticking for a moment with the sports theme, do you think people around the Columbus area, and in fact, really all over the Midwest, do you think they appreciate and acknowledge President Trump's efforts to save the fall college sports season, especially Big Ten football?
Yeah, I got to tell you, that morning that the decision was made, I got a call from the president, and he was all fired up. And he said, Jim, this is big. And I said, no kidding, Mr. President, this is really big. And I said, frankly, Mr. President, this doesn't happen but for your involvement.
Right.
So the original vote in the Big Ten was 3-11 to play. The president gets involved, touches base with the Big Ten commissioner, starts weighing in on this important issue. And the final vote was 14-0. And Big Ten football starts up this Saturday. So
it's exciting.
The president understands that this is important to the country. And it would not have happened but for his involvement, but for him saying, I'm going to get involved and make sure we have Big Ten football and college football across the country.
Right. No, absolutely. It is a Trump win. It's a win for these young athletes, for millions of fans. It's a win for the businesses that are going to do better, bars and restaurants, and all the activity that takes place around these games. It's a big win for him. And as you know, Congressman, the president, he loves sports and he also loves athletes. I talked to him about this issue as well, Big Ten football. When I mentioned to him, which I guess he didn't know, that I played college football, that got him so excited. So I think it raised his opinion of me a notch to know that, even though it was a long time ago that I was on the field. But hey, last question for you, because I know how busy you are, Congressman. Now, if the president wins, and we believe he's going to, what do you think is the most important economic goal for Trump's second term?
No, to get us right back to where we were, this roaring economy. Look, I know the president wants to make the tax cuts permanent. He wants to continue to fight for American manufacturing, take on China, make sure trade deals are fair, done in the interest of the United States. He wants to keep regulation low. Remember, if they win, if the other side wins, if it's President Biden, if it's Leader Schumer, and if it's Speaker Pelosi, they will raise your taxes. They will increase regulation. They will come after our common sense pro-America energy policy. Right. They will drive up the cost to do business. It will be tough to have that growing economy where wages are up and things are working in the right direction. It'll be real tough. So that's what the president needs to focus on. And he will do just that, as in addition to standing up for your values, your rights, your First Amendment liberties, your Second Amendment liberties, securing the border, continuing to build the wall like he told us he was going to do and like he's been doing. So all those things will continue to happen. But that's what's at stake. And I think Americans understand it. They can feel the energy on President Trump's side. I said to a group the other day, when's the last time you saw a Biden boat parade? Joe Biden has an event, he'll have 5 circles, but they only have 4 people show up. So the energy is on the president's side, and I think he's going to prevail.
Yeah, regarding flags, I always say I've yet to see, traveling a lot around this country, I've yet to see a single Biden flag, but I see Trump flags everywhere. I see them in front of middle-class homes. I see them behind pickup trucks waving, and we certainly see them behind boats as well. Well, listen, Congressman, you're so busy, so we so appreciate your time. Thanks for being our guest tonight.
Thanks for all you're doing, Steve. Take care, brother.
You bet. Patriots, we'll be right back after this.
Darling, somebody just moved next door. Who is it? It's a representative of Antifa. She will look at her husband and say, darling, we're out of here. We're out of here. Antifa, they're bad people. A lot of them now are wealthy. They're like these wealthy, spoiled kids that have no clue about life. They've got arms that are about this big, but they wear heavy jackets with lots. And you look, you say, oh, that guy looks tough. And then the jacket comes off, and you see these 2 little. Then they go home, and they live in a basement, too, their mom and dad's basement.
The growth of China is overwhelmingly in our interest.
A beautiful history we wrote together. Banning all travel will not stop it.
The president is right. That travel restriction on China, as every public health official we've talked to said, bought the country time.
Hysterical xenophobia. Fear mine. Xenophobia.
Joe.
He indicated that I complimented him on dealing with China. I'm not going nuts.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Our next guest is Lena Epstein of Michigan. She's a business owner and someone who also takes a lot of interest in politics. So, Lena, before we get into your story, can you share with the audience, from your perspective as a business owner, what has President Trump done to create the conditions for economic success in this country?
And good evening, Steve. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be on your show. As a business owner and a job creator in the state of Michigan and Ohio, I can speak to great lengths about what it's been like to be a business owner under President Trump's administration. He's made it easier for a business owner like me to do business. He's cut taxes effectively. He has deregulated, crippled parts of the economy that were bound by unnecessary red tape. He also very courageously introduced the PPP program this year that saved so many businesses that were affected by the pandemic. He's an extraordinary economic president.
Yeah, fantastic. No, listen, we know this from the macro data. And on this show, what we do is we start from the macro and, from 30,000 feet, look at the economy. What does the national data show us? But then we also want to drill down to the micro, to people like you who are doing it, who are job creators, who are business owners, who on the ground know the reality of what happened with the Trump boom, the first Trump boom before COVID, and this second one now. So, Lena, if you would, we want to get into your story. So if you would share some of it with our audience. We talk about the energy sector a lot on this show. So tell us, please, about your business and also about how important this American energy revolution is for our economy and for our national security.
Yes, thank you so much. I am a business owner in the oil and energy sector, and my company distributes finished lubricants, amongst other products, to the manufacturing and automotive sector of Michigan and Ohio. And it's been an incredible business started by my grandfather almost 80 years ago. And President Trump in 2016 spoke to me in a way that no other presidential candidate had ever spoken before. He reminded me that I was not left behind as a business owner, that he understood what it meant to create a job. We talk about signing the front side of the paycheck. And President Trump has led this nation with the extraordinary track record of phenomenal businesses created not just around Michigan and Ohio, but around the whole world.
Right. No, absolutely. Now, it seems to me, sticking on you and your story, that the energy field is mostly a male world. So what's it like to be a woman owner in the energy business? And is it extra motivating to be a woman business owner?
I love being a woman business owner. It's a lot of fun. My company is majority owned by women in my family. We enjoy being women in business together. We work with men and women alike. And ultimately, I want to be measured, Steve, by my intellect, my hard work, and what I can contribute. But it is a very enjoyable time to be a woman in the oil and energy sector right now. To your earlier question, or to your earlier statement about energy independence, I just will hope that all of your viewers are informed that President Trump has made America energy independent so that we don't have to go to our foes overseas and compromise our security to get the lubricants that we need to run our equipment and our automobiles.
Right. No, thank God. We are never going to be, particularly if we re-elect President Trump, we're never going to be dependent anymore on foreign sources of energy. And you're right. Unfortunately, a lot of those foreign sources were from hostile places or volatile places. And you're much too young, Lena, to remember this, but I do remember from my childhood in the 1970s, the days of the oil embargoes. We don't ever want to go back there, and we don't have to, thanks to American technology, thanks to President Trump, and thanks to the good Lord above with blessing our land with a lot of resources that happen to be below our feet. So we need to continue and accelerate our energy dominance. It's great for our economy, and it's certainly great for our national security as well. But getting back to the issue of women, I want to ask you, what would you say to women who might be undecided? What would you say to persuade them and to earn their vote for President Trump?
Sure. I think the main message is a message for men and women, Steve. The message is that President Trump is keeping the country safe. He's securing the borders. He's making sure that we grow the economy, that we grow the GDP year over year. And for a woman who is wondering who to vote for, I would say certainly a vote for Donald Trump. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for job opportunities for oneself and one's family. It's a vote for safety for one's children. So the appeal is to women, Steve, but it's also to men. Sure. Donald Trump is securing the economy and our borders for us and for our future generations.
Amen. Certainly. So, Lena, listen, you're not just a business person. You're also very involved in philanthropy and in politics. So can you tell us about those activities and what drives you to serve others through charity and also through public policy?
Thank you, Steve. I had the great honor in 2016 of serving as President Trump's statewide co-chair for his first presidential campaign. It was a volunteer role, and today I'm in a volunteer role to ensure that President Trump does win in the state and across America. But the question's a great one. I love this question. And to be quite direct, I do a lot of charitable philanthropic efforts in state and across the US. And I'm informed of these decisions because of my faith and my family. I was raised in a very patriotic household where we were encouraged to talk about values and what it meant to be American. And it's just been a great honor to grow up in the family that I've come from. We are a hardworking bunch, not unlike all of the other viewers this morning that are working hard to provide for their families as well.
Yeah, wonderful. So Lena, listen, last question. Give us your predictions, please, for your state, for Michigan, for the election there. Can you give us your prediction for John James running for Senate, as well as the presidential race, Donald Trump, in the Great Lakes state?
You bet. I was in Muskegon, Michigan, less than 48 hours ago for President Trump's rally. And having been to a number of these rallies, Steve, in 2016 and now this year, I am just amazed by the groundswell in the state of Michigan. We also have great metrics coming out about small dollar donors for Team Trump outperforming Team Biden. Early voting in Michigan scored 41 to 39% in favor of our team. I anticipate, Steve, that Michigan will go red for Trump once again, and also that John James, a fine veteran, intelligent, successful, kind businessman, will defeat Gary Peters, who unfortunately, sir, is nothing shy of a career politician who enjoys his paycheck from the public dollar.
Right. No, hey, amen. You're getting me excited about Michigan. I agree with you. I think we're going to win both. I think that, we shocked the world by winning Michigan last time. And I think we're going to win it again, but we can't be complacent. We have to get out there and hustle and grind and earn the votes of every American, but especially in these key battleground states. So, Lena, thank you for everything you're doing for our country, for this president, and thank you so much for being our guest on the program.
Thank you, Steve. It's an honor being with you tonight.
You bet. Friends, we'll be right back.
The moment has come for our nation to deal with systemic racism.
What exactly is systemic racism or institutional racism? Individual racism is obvious. Systemic racism, however, is far more subtle, and it originates in the operation of established and respected forces in the society and thus receives far less public condemnation. Systemic racism is when Black and brown citizens are kept trapped in lower society by privileged elitists in order to maintain power by creating a permanent second class of people. Systemic racism is the 1994 crime bill.
Biden's 1994 crime bill helped fuel mass incarceration with financial incentives to keep people behind bars.
Biden's record in the Senate actually reflects very racist legislation.
Biden has made it a death penalty offense for everything but jaywalking.
I like the idea they keep in jail longer. I'm the guy that wrote the bill.
Systemic racism is knowing full well that people trapped in poverty cannot afford lawyers to fight back against false allegations.
It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society.
It's breaking up families and creating entire generations of fatherless children.
The founder of Planned Parenthood was a eugenicist. Birth control, said Margaret Sanger, must lead ultimately to a cleaner race. We don't want the word to get out, Sanger said, that we want to exterminate the Negro population.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife.
Instead of building back better, systemic racism is deeming a community as an unfit, unsocialized group of people who cannot be rehabilitated.
We don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. We have predators on our streets. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
Systemic racism is when you deprive generations of children from a quality education.
If I'm president, Betsy DeVos's whole notion from charter schools to this are gone.
It's when your own running mate calls you out for supporting institutional racism.
I was actually it was hurtful
to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
Biden sought and received support from Mississippi Senator James Eastland. He frequently spoke of blacks as, quote, an inferior race.
And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing.
Do you think that his remarks about segregationist senators and his past policy on busing effectively disqualify him as a candidate?
I think the voters will decide whether he is qualified to run or serve.
Systemic racism is when you are a vice president to the first black president and preserved the unjust system.
The Black Lives Matter movement emerged under a black president, black attorney general, and black Homeland Security, and they couldn't deliver, you see?
You know, I'm like the token black.
So I learned about roaches. Unlike the African-American community, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. They're gonna put you all back in chains.
Joe Biden can't change the system. He is the system. But President Trump has begun to dismantle Joe Biden's systemically racist 47-year career. He signed criminal justice reform into law, increased and secured permanent funding for historically black colleges and universities. He fights for school choice, and President Trump took the lead on police reform last year. All of the issues that President Obama neglected and the policies that Biden could have changed in nearly a half a century in Washington.
America's ready of rooting out our systemic racism.
We agree, Joe. That's why you have to go. Systematic racism ends when Joe Biden is retired from public office.
You ain't black. You ain't black.
Joe Biden has never been a moderate. Now he's nothing but a Trojan horse for the radical left. And just like the socialists, the first thing he wants to do is raise your taxes.
Guess what? If you elect me, your taxes are going to be raised, not cut.
Joe Biden, even though he's portrayed as a moderate, is offering the most expensive Democratic tax plan that we've seen.
Joe Biden truly is a Trojan horse for the radical left. And who is Joe Biden's main partner in developing the Democrats' radical far-left agenda? Socialist Bernie Sanders and his comrades. Joe Biden would let AOC and the rest of her socialist squad take the reins and run his presidency. But this election, we will defeat the Trojan horse and close the book on Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The big challenge that COVID brought that we just didn't see coming was that just almost everything kind of just shut down.
Our president has created such a surplus that when this pandemic hit, he was able to refund Americans without indebting us.
I'm fighting for you, and I love doing
We were able to apply for a PPP loan, which allow us to continue hiring.
He actually understands the need for small businesses like my sisters to survive.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
We need your help to defend our country against Joe Biden and the radical Democrats. The stakes couldn't be any higher this November. So we need all the patriots at home watching right now to join in our fight to re-elect President Donald J. Trump. Here's how you can get involved. First, download the new groundbreaking Trump 2020 app. It's now available on Apple and Android. To stay in contact with us, text Trump to 88022. If you or your friends, family, neighbors want to get involved in our fight to re-elect President Trump, please visit armyfortrump.com. You can also follow me on social media at Cortez Steve, Cortez with an S, on Twitter. Point of personal indulgence here, if you would. It is my amazing wife's birthday today. We are unfortunately not together because I'm so busy at Trump campaign headquarters. But honey, I love you. Happy birthday. I can't believe you're 29 again. Folks, we want to thank our amazing guests, Congressman Jim Jordan and entrepreneur Lena Epstein, for joining us this evening. And a special thank you to all our amazing supporters watching at home. We'll see you next time on MAGAnomics.
The southern end of our ranch is the international boundary, and I have over 200 trails from Mexico. It's drug packers.
We don't need a wall. It's about providing a clear roadmap to citizenship for 11 million undocumented aliens.
Yes, we will build the wall. We've already started. Someday we will have a form of security like everybody else.